Everyone, Hector Mendoza here with another video. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create a long continuous photo using a free app. It's called Photopea. You go to photopea.com, you can create your own account, and it's totally free. I've been using Photoshop since the 80s, and it's a very expensive software. This particular software that I created, this right here, this real long continuous image, was created with that. And this program looks almost identical to Photoshop. The only way that I could see that this is not Photoshop is somehow this is part of Photoshop. It might be, it might not be, but I can't find where this is made by Adobe. But everything is now it only has like 80% of Photoshop capabilities, but with that you can do a lot of things. I'm real impressed with this program. So what I'm going to do is get a bunch of screen captures. Each one of these are screen captures of my drone. Actually, it's GIMP screen captures of my iPhone, where if you notice right in here, this is I recorded my iPhone, and so let me see if I can hit play here, right here. So this is my iPhone, and I'm recording different settings. Okay, so this is my screen being recorded on my iPhone. And so as I was going through my screens, I created screen captures of them. Okay, and that's what this things are right here. These things are a bunch of screen captures, because there is not a PDF or a document that has this screenshots as far as I can see. I mean, there might be somewhere, but I am creating, eventually I will create some PDFs of all, like your safety, your control, your camera, transmission, about settings. And additionally, I will go in and create screenshots of your um, your videos, your camera settings, and I will go through each one of these settings and explain what all this stuff is on my drone. And then eventually I will go in and explain how to use your drone. Now, one thing that you really want to do is have your license if you're going to be operating a drone. But we'll talk about that later. So let's go ahead and do the Photoshop file. Okay, so now this is, like I explained earlier, you can go to photopedia.com. Okay, and you can create an account. I'm not even sure if I actually created an account or not, but if it asks you, I know it's free. Otherwise, I would have kept a note of it. So this is the Photoshop document that I was talking to, but if you notice, it's a real long document. So I'm not going to explain too much about the Photoshop, uh, how to create it. I'll have another video that will explain every single one of these pull down menus and what each thing does, and I will go through and talk about every one of these tools at a later video. But let's go ahead and let me show you how I achieved this um, this image, right? And so you will be able to actually later on, once you create, give me 1 second here. I'm going to create a new document in Word. Okay, so this is Word. Okay, And so, you know, you'll be able to bring that image into to a document. So I created a, I hope this is the image. Uh, Actually, I probably threw it away. So I'll show you how to bring it into Word later. For right now, let's go ahead and get going because this might take a little bit of time. And so let me find my Photoshop. Okay, so we're going to start a new one. And we're going to start with an 8.5 by 20 document. Now, it's bigger than what you need, okay? You actually could, let me see, image, canvas size. If I go to inches, oops, inches, this is really only, well, it's still 8.5 by 19. But we're going to reduce it down to a smaller image. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this thing. So first of all, I'm just going to go and close this one image, okay, this file. Let's start from scratch. That way you can see how this whole thing works. So if you go to Google or whatever internet you're using, and you go to Photopea.com, this is what it looks like when you start it. You can go in here and create a new project. The project, one thing you have to do is unlock this. And let me show you. First, let's go ahead and set the settings to inches. And let's name this project, give me a second here. Let's call it create a long continuous photo. Oop, I hope I spelled everything. Continuous. Continuous. Okay, continue. Oop, continuous. Okay, it doesn't matter. I mean, if I spell something wrong, this is just my spelling ain't good. With the width. Okay, so I'm going to show you two things when you're using this program. If I go in here and put 8.5 and then you click here, and normally it's going to be like this. When you first start, if you go in here and you put 8.5, it changes it to 8.5. If you change it to 11 inches, oh no, that's switching it back and forth. Sorry about that. So 8.5. Here we're going to just go with 8.5 by 18. Okay, 18 inches. And I'm gonna create it at a high resolution, 150 line per inch. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to print this at a later time. DPI is very important if you're going to just use it for screen capturing or you're going to use it for printing. And I'll always use about 150 line screen whenever I'm going to print it into to a printer, because at a 72 DPI you want 150 lines per inch and it'll give you a smooth print. Okay, so now we're just going to tell it a white background, right? So we're going to hit create. Now, we got to bring those images in here, okay? So let me, so you can see my screen. Okay, let's do this like this. Okay, so this is my folder that I saved all those captures, right? This is my first one. You can go in here and import it. The easiest way for me is just grabbing it and put it up here, right? So now it always throws it in the center, right? So if you can go in here, if you notice, there's some red lines on the upper and the left corner, and that tells you that it's snapping to it. And then you can go ahead and release it. Now it snapped out of the here. Let me, okay, now it stopped, right? So that's the first screen. And the reason that I want this screen is because eventually I'm going to put a little circle around here to indicate that when you click here, the next screen on my drone is this right here, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drop downs that it will be talking about. So I'm going to snap that right there. So the next one is the next screen. Let me see, 48, okay, 49. So this is the next screen. Okay, so you see it's still talking about safety, safety, because it has underline. So that's why I know that this is in order the way I want it. This is still talking about safety. Now, so you get to this point, and there's still, it looks like there's still more when it's talking about safety, right? So my document is not big enough, because if I bring the next one, look what happens. It gets cut off, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the canvas, not the document. I'm going to make the canvas bigger. There's a difference between those two terminologies. So if I go to image, you see we have image size, which is the image. If I went and changed the image, this would enlarge everything still being cut off, right? So what we want is canvas. And real important where you put this dot. If I put it here, it's going to go to the right. It's going to enlarge to the right. If I click here, it's going to enlarge to the left and right and down. If I click here, it's going to enlarge left, up, and down, right? Well, I want to add canvas to the bottom, right? So I'm going to put it right here, stabilizing the left and the right, and I want to go into inches. Okay, so this is actually a 4x8, which is okay. You know, I really want an 8.5 by 11, but we're just going to continue. But we do want this to be bigger. Okay, so let's give it 16 16 inches, and then hit OK. Now you see my canvas is bigger at the bottom. Now I can add more. It didn't mess with my left and right. So now, and it didn't, now I can see the rest of this. So the next one is this one here. So it throws it in the center, and it's still talking about safety. So I know this is still part of my of this document. And then let's see, I'm going to grab the next screen, stick it up here. And now it's talking about controls. So this is not part of this document that I want. So I'm just going to hit the delete button. Okay, now, so what this program did, it created layers. Okay, so so this is the first one. If you, excuse me, this is actually the first layer. And the way you can tell, it's hard to tell by clicking here because it doesn't give you like a selection, right? But the way you can figure out what's what is if you see this eyeball here, it can turn off and on the layer. So we don't need this no more. So let's close out some of this stuff because we don't need it. This was just explaining to y'all why isn't this turned off. Okay, here we go. And let's turn that off. Okay, and let's just fill this whole thing up. Okay, so if you click here, you will have, you can see what's what. So this one here is your first one. The background image, there's nothing in the background, but you do have, this is your first image that we imported. This is the second one. This is the third one, fourth one, and so forth. Now, let me show you some stuff. So I like the space between here because it tells me there's a divider between this screen and this screen. Now, this eventually is going to be a continuous because this is a continuous of what I want to capture. Okay, few things you have to understand. If I go in and try to delete something in a particular image, it's not going to let you at this point. So don't freak out. So let's look at this one, the second image, right? So we're going to turn it on. This is a selection tool, and I'm going to select this area, and I'm going to hit the delete key. And watch, you're going to get a screen telling you that, well, it didn't tell me, but so let's go in here. This image, is this it? Yeah. And hit delete. Look at, it says smart objects. Oh, let's try it again. Delete. Smart objects must be rasterized first. So it's not rasterized. This program can bring in vector and rasterization, rasterized images. So it doesn't know what it came, if there's some raster stuff in there. So it wants you to rasterize it. But before we do that, I'm going to click here and make sure. Look, so I have a selection, right? If I hit Control D for deselect, it will deselect that area. Now, what I want to do is move this part of the image up a little bit so I can. All I did was click on this layer, and I'll use my arrows. You see how I'm going up and down? This is how you can do that. But don't have your selection when you're doing it, because if you click on that selection, it's going to move that selected image and move it up and down. So that's real important. Now, so I'm going to show you the hard, it's not really hard, but I'm going to show you a few things that you have to keep in mind. Okay, so it would be nice. You see right here, this screen capture has part of disable sideways flight, and you see this heading and this heading. Well, here I don't want that heading, and I don't want that disable sideways flight twice. I just want to move this over to here. Okay, now if this was one image, I could, another thing. If you go into your views, you see right here how I have rulers. Yours is probably not going to have rulers in there. Okay, so you have to go view, view rulers. At that point, you can draw a guide. I'm going to select right in the middle of this measuring line. I'm going to left click and look. You see that right blue line? I can use this as a guide. It's only a guide. It will not print. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put him over on top of that, a little bit above the disable side flight, this thing here, right? Now this is not going to work, and I'm doing this intentionally to just show you how you can delete parts of an image. So this is my selection tool. Okay, I'm going to move right where I want it. I'm going to left click, and the reason I put that guide, because it would be hard for me when I'm down here to select right on top where I want it. right? So that's why I put that guide. Now, when I left click and then start moving this selection, it's actually going to snap to the beginning of the image. And even though if I go past that image, it'll snap back to the end of the image. Okay, so look, so I can go way up here to the left. That way I'll make sure that I select everything. And remember, if you're going to delete something, you have to be in on top of that image, right? So I'm going to show you how to delete this, but we're not going to do it this way because I'm going to show you an easier way. So, and I'll explain all of that. So I'm going to left click, and then I am going to go right on top of that. And look where my mouse is, but it is only selecting to the right end and to the left hand. You see that? Okay, so now, so if I delete, so I'm going to release my mouse, and you see the selection, right? When I delete, it's only going to delete this part of the image because I'm selecting only that image. No matter what selection up, I can make this selection as far all the way to the bottom, and it's only going to delete in the areas that I am actually selecting. Now, at this point, it's still not going to let me delete that part of the image because we haven't rasterized it. So look, hit delete and gives you that smart object thing on the right, right? Now, if I right click and rasterize it and make sure that you're on that particular image and you hit delete, it deleted it, okay? But it didn't delete the bottom part. Okay, so we're going to hit Control Z. I could do that and then go back and delete the other part, but now I don't have that image on top to let me know where where I actually left off on my screenshots. Sometimes you have to give more at the bottom. It's hard to explain, but sometimes when you're doing screenshots, you have to add more than what you want. For instance, you see right here, battery. I had to add this battery here so I would know where to cut it off down here. Okay, so now once you delete that, then you would forget, oh, where did I leave off, at the battery or the battery info? So it's real important to do it the way that I'm going to do it next. So watch this. I'm going to hit Control Z. Now what I'm going to do is go in and flatten this whole image into one image. Right now, look at all the layers we have, right? I could be on any one of these layers. I can right click, and you see right here where it says flatten image. If I flatten that image, now you only see one layer. At this point, if I click and drag and try to delete that, it's not going to let me. Watch this. So if I hit delete, oh, it did, excuse me. Normally, you have to unlock it here. Sometimes this thing will be locked, which I'm going to go ahead and unlock it because a lot of times when it's locked, it's not going to let you delete things. Okay, now that we have this into one image, it rasterizes it automatically. Okay, first of all, now watch what I can do. I can start at the beginning of the disable, and that's where I want to delete. So I'm going to hit delete. Now what I'm going to do, so it's not like I can go in and move this up, okay? Because look, this is how you move your image up and down. because this is the background. It's not going to let you move the whole, oh yeah, excuse me. You see how the whole image moved? Uh, you don't want to do that because all I want to do is move this up and butt it against that. So now, I don't need this. I'll use this later, but I don't need it there right now. What I want to do is move this up to here, right? So the way you would do that is you get your selection right here. See, I'm going to left click, drag to the right until I get to the end of it. You see that this little thing right here, right in here, I don't need that. That's part of my scroll thing, and I don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to go up just a little bit higher and release my mouse. Now, while that selection is selected, you need to click here. And now it's only going to move what is selected. So if I left click that selection, I can move it, right? And it snaps to the left and right and snap right there to the top. Now you can click away from it and it's the selection is gonna stay, right? To deselect, you can right click. I don't know, but what I do is I hit Control D, and I know that's gonna deselect it. I know that command from Photoshop. I've been using Photoshop since the 80s. So if I hit Control D, that's gonna deselect it. Now, the next part I want is where it starts from when returning to home, the aircraft. I want that right in here. I'm gonna go to my selection tool, and now you can go up here or you can just hit the M, and that M is gonna give you your selection tool, right? So if I left click, go down right to the beginning of that when, I'm gonna have that selection. I'm gonna delete by hitting my delete key on my mouse. I'm gonna hit my M, or let's deselect first, Control D. Let's hit M for selection, which is up here. Okay, I showed you where it's at, so I want to start using commands because it goes a lot faster. So I'm going to get right on top, and I am going to left click, select all the way to the bottom, and well, not to the bottom because remember, I don't want that scroll thing. Okay, I want this to look like a real continuous tone image. So while I have it selected, I'm gonna, now there's a command for this too. See, V. Instead of going down there, all I have to do is hit V, and while I have my selection, I can move that selection area. Okay, uh, so you snap and just move it up, release. So two things. If you don't have a real steady hand and you keep on going down too far, you can use your arrow keys. Now I've released my mouse. You can just use your arrow keys and move it as high, up or down as you want, and hit Control D to um, to deselect it. Now I want to, from this corner, I want to just be right on top of the battery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my guide here. I'm going to move it just a little bit how far I want to the top of that battery. And I'm going to select from here to the top of this battery, and that will delete everything in here, right? So what was the selection? M, right? M. To select, left click, drag right to the top, okay? And Now I got my selection. And what was that command? V, right? V will give me, well, first let's delete it. Okay, let's delete it. Control D to deselect. I want to move this up. I actually could move everything up, which would be easier at this point. So M will give me my selection. I'm going to left click, go all the way to the bottom, and then hit M to move it. Oops, V, excuse me, V to move it while it's selected. I'm going to just snap to the left, and there you go. Now we only got one more to go. I'm going to Control D for deselect. So here, I'm just going to delete from where it says unlock to the beginning of this dark screen. Okay, and it's hard to see that. So what I'll do is I'll create two guides. One, I'll give myself a little space after unlock the zone. I'm going to go up here again and create another guide. So I'm going to left click and move my guide. So right after that safety, just a little bit lower, I'm going to release. That way I can make a selection right between these lines. So M will give me my selection tool, which is this one right here, right? I'm going to left click here, and you see how it snaps to that guide? I'm going to release my, once I go past this guide and it snaps to it, okay? I'm going to release my left mouse. I'm going to hit the delete key. I'm going to hit Control D to deselect. I don't need these guys no more, okay? Now, so you can hit escape. Now, if you want to hit your V, which is this command, right? This it's the move tool. If you hit the V, then you see it. You can change the guides. You can take it down here, or if you wanted to remove those guides. If I go to the left, look, it don't do nothing, right? To remove it, if you get on top of it, left click and just take it past that ruler, then it you get rid of it. So again, you can't go to the left, but you can go to the right. Equally, if you had a guide on the right side, a vertical one, you can't click up like that and release it. But if you left click and drag it to the left, that's how you're going to get rid of it. Now, the last thing we got to do is bring this guy up to here. Okay, so M for selection, right? We'll go in here and just select this part and then release, hit V, and we're going to left click and snap to the left and move up and deselect. Okay, so now you have a continuous image, okay? So you really don't want to bring an image this size into a different program like, let's say Word, InDesign, Illustrator, CorelDRAW, PageMaker, or even your like debut video capture or videoPad editor or any program. You want to make the canvas the size of what you have. It makes things a lot simpler. And to do that, you need to know what from here to here is, right? So when you make a selection, it's going to give it to you in pixels. So when you change your canvas, which is this area from here all the way to the top is the selection is gonna be selected under pixels. Okay, no big deal. You just gotta remember the size of that pixel. And let me explain what that is. First, we're gonna make a selection. We're gonna start from the upper left-hand corner. Okay, I'm gonna left click and then go all the way to the bottom. You see on the right, to my right of my mouse, you see the width in pixels and then the height in pixels. So we got 1365 pixels. Let me write that down, 1365. Okay, so now we want to get rid of uh, this pixel. Okay, so another little thing, a little trick that I need to show you. If you hold your space key, you see that hand? I can move the canvas, not the image inside the canvas, but the whole canvas. Okay, so when you see a hand, you can move this thing around. Another thing you can do is hit Control-0, and that will fit the whole image. And while you have it there, you can hold your Control key and move your arrow, your mouse down, and make it small. So, so So look, if you hit Control-0, it fits into the window, right? If I hit Control and I move my mouse down, look what happens. It slaps it over to the left. It moves it to the right and left, right? Now I'm going to hit Control-0. Now, depending on where I put my mouse, I can enlarge and reduce from that point. So I'm going to move. While I'm enlarging, I'm going to move the image to the right. So this time I'm going to hit my Alt key. I'm holding my Alt key and look where my mouse is right here. You're going to see everything go up to the right. Look, so I got my Option key. Look, you see everything's moving to the right and it's keeping my mouse where it is. Same thing. So let's say I'm here. I want to enlarge this area. I'm holding my Option key and look, everything moves to the left. Let's hit Control-0. Let's say I wanted to enlarge and reduce from the center. You would go into the center of the page. If you hit your Control key, now it's going to reduce from all those sides. And this is everything I'm doing is works like in Photoshop. So this is I don't know how they created this free program when it looks just like Photoshop. Anyway, so we know the canvas size, guys. Now, if I go to image, you don't want to change the image size, you want to change the canvas. I'm going to show, just so that you can see what happens, I'm going to change the image size, right? Now, what will happen is look in the background. We're going to change this one to, let's say, 800, okay? And I'm going to hit OK. Look what it did. It changed the whole thing to 800. I'm going to hit Control-Z because that's not what I want. What I want to do is change the canvas. In other words, I want to get rid of from here to here. So if I go to image, go to canvas size, it's real important where this dot is. Okay. And so let me, if I put this image right here and I change, so let's move this image a little bit. So let's say I change this, watch what happens down here. If I change this to, let's say 8 and hit OK, look, it cut off everything at the top and it cut some of it at the bottom. Hit Control-Z. It's because when I came in here and I told this image canvas size, I told it to cut it from the center. Now, if I click here, it's going to retain everything on the left, it's going to retain everything on the right, but it's going to cut off starting from the bottom. And remember, we were talking in pixels, so you want to change this into pixels, and the pixels were 1,365 pixels, which was the selection from here to here. So if everything works right, it should cut off all of this right here. So let's hit OK. And let's see if my calculations were right. Bingo. There you go. See, there's the scroll button. There was the selection that I have. And at this point, you can go ahead and you can save the document. So you can go File. You can save it as a PDS, or you can export it. So let's save it as a PSD, okay? And if you know a little bit about Photoshop, then you will know why I'm doing it that way. But for right now, I'm just going to go to Desktop, and I'm going to save it. Now I have a Photoshop format, but you can bring a Photoshop format into a lot of programs. So what we're going to do is, while we have it open, we're going to go here and export it as a JPEG. Each one of these things do different things. JPEG is one of the most common things you're going to use for printing. Okay, or you can actually use a lot of different ones. Like you got PDF, you got SVG and PNG, but we're going to use it as a JPEG. So I'm going to click here, and now when you're exporting it, so look, it's automatically naming it what you told it, right? And we're telling it a JPEG. The quality, let's say you want high quality, you want to go ahead and go all the way to the top, which is going to increase the size, not the width and height, but the size of the image, okay? And I'll always go to the high quality. So we're going to go ahead and hit save, and watch what happens out here on the left hand side. So I hit save. Now you have this little thing, and while this thing is blinking off and on, that means it's still trying to save. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here, and I'm going to tell it show in folder. In other words, it's going to open up the folder that it saved. So I am going to click here, and so I'm going to go in here and open up Word to show you. So let's go to Word, create a new document. It's probably going to throw it to one of my screens, and let me move it over to this screen. Okay, so give me a second here. Okay, so a lot of ways to bring it in here. You can go into insert, and then tell it a picture, and then in this device, or you can go in here and left click and just throw it right in there. So whenever you're bringing something into Word, it's going to give you two different ways that it's going to bring it in. It's going to try to bring it into either the longest or the width. So if so it all depends on how big the image is. So it'll try to fit it in as close as possible, where it doesn't make it too wide or too long. So it knows that if this would have come all the way to the right, then this would have been off the screen. So it fit in to the height. Now, because we did put this in a high resolution, look at the quality of it. It's real nice. Now, I messed up because I really wanted this to be at a 8.5 by 11. So when it would have came in, the quality would have even been better. But yeah, it is what it is. But that would print good. Um, anyway, guys, this is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this. If you like my video, give me a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to me. I have a bunch of different tricks that I use in a bunch of programs. Uh, so I think I know about 15 different programs, and I always integrate everything using all the programs. Again, thank you for watching my video, and I hope you like this.